Hillsboro has been identified for years nationally as one of the best places to live in the United States. And the South Hillsboro neighborhood is a remarkable opportunity to create place here in a region where rarely is there the land available to achieve real placemaking. I'm Steve Callaway, Mayor of the City of Hillsboro, and welcome to Community Conversations. Today we're here at the beautiful Tamarack Park talking about what goes into making a neighborhood and creating a complete community. We're just a stone's throw away from Tamarack Elementary School, which is the home of the river otters. So we ought to have a pretty good conversation today with our guests. We have Hillsboro's Economic and Community Development Director, Dan Diaz. We have Reeds Crossing Community Manager, Kiley Cook. And from Brookfield Properties, which is the development company for Reeds Crossing Community in South Hillsboro, we have Eric Peterson. Thank you all for joining me today. So here in Reeds Crossing, we are welcoming thousands of new neighbors to Hillsboro, and we are bringing new parks, schools, streets, trails, and shopping for everyone. So as we begin our conversation today, tell me, what is your favorite part of South Hillsboro neighborhood? Dan, we'll start with you.
So, Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to be here with these great panelists as well today to celebrate this part of our community. For me professionally, the greatest parts of South Hillsboro are realizing the diversity of our community, those families and people that decided to live here, and really the diversity of the housing choices that we're able to provide down here. We'll talk more about that over the course of today's conversation. And then I'll just add personally, one of the favorite parts of South Hillsboro is Tamarack Elementary behind me, which is an area that after hours, I do a little bit of youth coaching as well. So those community assets and ties back into the community.
Great, thanks. Kiley.
One of my favorite parts of the South Hillsboro area is the way that nature has really been integrated into the new development, as opposed to, you know, home builders just kind of tolerating the nature that is already here. We're really starting to see it featured and focused as a core amenity.
Very good.
For me, it's the people. And what I mean by that is, you know, we spent a decade or more coming up with a concept and a vision and a land plan and a design for this community in the hopes that we'd build something that people genuinely used and loved. And so when you're able to walk the community now on the weekends, or as we just saw during the day, during the week, and you see kids on their bikes and parents out enjoying all of these things that we envisioned years and years ago, it's incredibly fulfilling to see that take place.
And so, you know, Eric, how does this compare with the vision? You know, we see the families and, you know, we have multi-generational households and just the broad variety of people that have come in from all over. How does this, match the vision, that you all set 10 years ago when we began the planning?
Yeah, I think we all had very lofty goals of what South Hillsboro was to be back 10 years ago. And I would say by and large, we've achieved many of those goals. We're not quite there completely. It's still, a work in progress. There's plenty to go. I know for us at Brookfield internally, we had sort of raised the bar for ourselves with the goal of Reeds Crossing being the most extraordinary master plan community in the Pacific Northwest. And, I think each phase, each year, we're getting better and better. We're incorporating feedback from our residents and then changing the design, changing the layout of the neighborhood in future phases to improve. And I think that's getting us closer and closer to that larger goal. But by and large, I think that if we were to go back 10 years ago and show ourselves what we've achieved today in South Hillsboro, we'd be very pleased.
Nice. And Dan, from a city perspective, how does this meet the vision?
Yeah.
Because in some ways, I mean, this whole process, while some folks can look at it and say, gee, this is happening so fast, it really started 30 years ago when the first developer purchased the land.
Absolutely. It was definitely a long time in the making, the planning process, Mayor, and part of that is tied to this was a pretty significant urban growth boundary expansion area. This area had been previously farmed, and prior to that was native areas, both from a wildland standpoint and with indigenous peoples. But we really don't take those urban growth boundary areas lightly. In fact, we really try to bring intentional thought and planning to make sure that as we convert those areas from a more rural setting to meet a more urban need, like the extent of housing around here, we do so thoughtfully. And as Eric noted, really starting with the experience and the people in this addition to our community was important. The integration of pretty degraded riparian areas and enhancing them and turning them not only into more healthy riparian areas, but they also will serve utilitarian functions, meaning they will treat the stormwater from this project. They also have an educational and a recreational benefit. And so when we look at this vision, we really have been achieving it. We still have a long way to go. About a third of South Hillsboro's planned units are built out at this point, with nearly half of kind of in the permitting stages. But we also look around the density that's here. There is a lot of density for a new growth area, providing a lot of ownership opportunities in a variety of housing types. And so to that end, we really hit our goal and our marks. And then lastly, the theme that we'll continue to refer to today and has been the mantra of South Hillsboro, which was complete, connected, and green. And so we've achieved that through those plans. But if we're not working with partnerships like with Reed's Crossing and some of the other developers early on, we would not be able to actually realize those. There was financial pieces that had to be worked through. There was infrastructure planning and coordination pieces as well that have brought us to where we sit today. So,
Kiley, you have not been a part of this project as long as Eric or Dan, a little over a year. So, as you have become familiar with, this area, what are the things that you have, I guess, learned and experienced that, in terms of the vision that you had when you began to work here?
It's really been a pleasure to watch the vision kind of come to life. When I started a year ago, there was not a whole lot of lifestyle programming going on. There were some things and, some strong annual events that we're still doing now. But it's been really great to see the way that we've kind of expanded and improved upon our lifestyle offerings. And then also just, the physical construction. It's really amazing to watch how fast things are coming up and going, coming to meet with what the vision was.
Great. Well, this is the largest planned development in the history of our state, which is really remarkable when you think about it. And it's right here in Hillsboro. And so when we think about the fact that, we have people who, live in Hillsboro and commute elsewhere and vice versa, the housing needs for the region are represented and being addressed here. And so with different types, different amenities. And Eric, could you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So from the very beginning, we were very intentional about providing a very broad mix of housing types. And that's part of the beauty of a master plan. When you start with 465 acres, we're able to provide a little bit of everything. And that's really was our goal, is to provide housing across the spectrum on the rental side. So we have everything from studio apartments to 4-bedroom rental units. And then on the for sale side, we have small triplex units all the way up to executive housing. And there's a bit of everything in every price point and every housing type that we try to offer. So there's 6 different housing segments on the for sale side and really 4 on the rental side. That's pretty unique, but that was our intention from the very beginning, is to try to provide that broad variety. The other thing that we do, though, that's unique in the housing and development world is that we integrate these different housing styles and price points within the community. So you don't just see one part of the community that's the more expensive homes and we sequester those off. On any given block, we'll have 4 or 5 different price points and housing types. So you get a variety of streetscape, you get a variety of incomes on the same street, you get a variety of housing types. And we think that improves the richness of the community.
And Dan, how does that reflect in, our planning goals, not just here, but for what we are seeking to provide for an inventory throughout the city?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So our city staff, in conjunction with the community at large and our council and leadership, really try to continue to look at what are the immediate needs and opportunities for housing within our community, as well as try to plan for future growth and opportunity as well. And so South Hillsboro allows us to bring a significant number of units to bear with partners like we just heard from, and to provide a mixture of housing. There's a lot of ownership housing down here as well, blended in with rental housing, as Eric mentioned. And so that goes a long way towards meeting our housing needs and goals. It also creates new housing units that can bring new residents in or support existing residents in the area, and are really aligning with our focus of being a complete community, meaning that we have amenities available to residents in all of our different neighborhoods. It also means that we have housing that's nearby the employment opportunities, especially for those members of our community that work. And so bringing this concentration of housing near the employment center that Hillsboro also is, makes a more complete community, reduces travel distances and times as well. And then lastly, what it is it's really an opportunity for us to continue to add and grow. So when we bring the 8,000 anticipated units in South Hillsboro online, we can look back to some of the other rich and important neighborhoods of our city, whether it's Witch Hazel, which was the predecessor to South Hillsboro, immediately to the west of us, brought in the late 90s or early 2000s, where we think about the vibrant communities that continue to grow and expand in the Amber Glen Tannisbourne area, or Orenco Station, or the Jackson School and Glencoe neighborhoods, or even Reedville just north of South Hillsboro. All of those neighborhoods have grown and become part of the city's vision over time, and then come to reality and now contribute to the richness that makes Hillsboro as a whole great, and also makes South Hillsboro the most recent addition to that. So,
Eric, you mentioned, the mix, of housing styles, and which is different and unique. And what are some of the other things that have been incorporated that are unique, that make it stand aside? And then how has community building been incorporated with the design?
Really, when we start blank slate, look at a new phase, we really start with the perspective of the resident experience. That guides our design. We think that if we do that right, there'll be plenty of demand and people will want to live here. And so we really start with our pathways and open space. That's the first thing we design. And then from there, we go to the roads and then the lotting pattern. So really what we think the most value we provide is, how does the open space function for the resident? How do they connect from the small pocket park or the community gathering space that they live in front of to the larger park, over to the school, into the town center? And so that's really at the core of how we design the community, is resident experience first, and then everything else follows. We think it's a winning formula, and ultimately we think that's what contributes to people, loving their community, staying here longer, as Kiley said, integrating or spending time with their neighbors, getting to know their neighbors, and becoming kind of a stronger fabric within the community.
Here in Tamarack Park, we have our pathways, our bike paths, and pedestrian connected, Dan, as you mentioned. Then thinking of all those things that you mentioned, it seems, I would think originally it would be hard for a developer to give up buildable land for parks. But really, it becomes then one of those quality of life amenities.
That's right.
That, as you say, you plan around, and then that becomes one of the selling points for the neighborhood.
It really is. And as I said, we think of resident experience first. We also allocate significantly more open space than we would normally, or that we would be required to do. So about 20% of the overall land within Reed's Crossing, north of 20%, is open space. We think that's important. We also think that balances then the land planning. You need the open space to provide the quality of life, and the land planning to balance that out. So,
a few years ago, I was talking to somebody. She didn't know I was the mayor, and she was moving into South Hillsboro, and she had 3 boys, roughly 8, 10, and 12. And she talked about where they currently live. She always worried because they would play and ride bikes and whatnot out in the street. And she said, and we're in this new area where there are separate bike paths for kids apart from the street. I don't have to worry about them with cars. And she said they can just be boys. Yeah. And I love that description. And, she said, and there's a park already there. Mm-hmm. And so there are times when, as you are building a development, the park is a later addition. But now, she said, the park is already there. And so it helps to create, that community. And, Kiley, that's critically important because, in our city, we are more than 45% identified as people who belong to communities of color from, recent census statistics. And of the top 10 cities in population, we're the only city in Oregon that is above 40%. So when we think about people moving here and creating a community, what are some of the things that are done to bring people together to create that community and that neighborhood feel?
That's a really good question. Thanks, Mayor. We welcome around 20 new households to the community every month. And many of them have never lived in a planned community or an HOA, and they really don't know what to expect. And so it's really important to us that we start that relationship between the HOA and the resident off on the right foot. And we do that by introducing ourselves really early on in the home buying process with a welcome phone call, where we actually call them up and we introduce ourselves and we answer, any questions that they have already, and we make sure that they know we're available to answer any more that they have throughout, their buying process and their move-in and beyond. We also, during that time, we go over our community event calendar, which has events that are both within the community and then just kind of in the Hillsboro area in general. And we do that right away so that they can very quickly jump in and get started, building their own connections in the area. Additionally, one of the other huge pieces of making people feel welcomed and making sure that we capture all of the different, ethnicities and cultures in the community is our social committee. The social committee is a group of 12 resident volunteers that we work really closely with to plan all of the events that we offer. And we've found that involving the residents in the planning process really helps us get an authentic idea of what the wants and needs are in the community and cater to those. So, just recently, last month, actually, we had a volunteer planned and driven celebration of India's Independence Day. And it coincided with our regular monthly food truck night. So we had an Indian food truck come. We had residents that performed live dances and music and even a fashion show put on by the kids. And that was it was a huge success. And I think it really made people feel welcomed, and it's all thanks to, our resident volunteers.
Nice. And not only does it then, make people feel at home when that's their culture and their heritage, but also for those who want to learn more about it because it's not, their background and their lived experience. What a great way, again, to create community, which then spills over into the schools, which as a former, school principal, the school is the heart of the community. And so to see that kind of connection, it's not accidental. And, Dan, so what can you say about the vision for the schools, here in South Hillsboro?
Yeah, so as we noted earlier, there was a lot of thought in planning time that went into this and coordination. And I want to give a major credit where it's due to the Hillsboro School District, because as we started as a city and a community to pursue the South Hillsboro expansion area, start to plan for that, there was the recognition, the understanding that we're going to bring a lot of households and a lot of families and a lot of school-age children into this area that will become part of our community. And the school district was very proactive in terms of seeking to acquire land, seeking to do their own planning in alignment with what we were doing to prepare for that. And that then allowed them to engage with partners like Eric and Reed's Crossing to then co-locate those facilities, because we had this blank slate of sorts to master plan and try to maximize all of those relational location factors too. And so that was a big piece of it. It got to the projections of how many units did we think we were going to see down here, some of the unit mix types. And so that's what really allowed us to then co-locate parks such as Tamarack, where we sit today, with Tamarack Elementary, which is immediately behind us.
And Eric, when you have people who move in, access to schools is one of those critical things that you care about, when you have kids at school age. So how do you incorporate that, in terms of accessibility, amenities and things like that for a school?
It is critically important for us. 56% of our buyers are first-time buyers, so a lot of young families with young kids who are moving into Reed's Crossing. The national average is 32% first-time buyers, so we're a very young community with a lot of kids. And so we knew from the very beginning that the location of the school, how people access it via the trail network, was incredibly important. So we centered the school, worked with the school district to place it really in the center of phase 1. So that houses are surrounding it on all sides. It's adjacent to Tamarack Park here, so that the school has access to the park, and then ultimately into the greenway where there's a nature education area that we got together with the district and co-designed that nature education area. It has an outdoor classroom and a number of different pods for learning opportunities, from wetlands to bee pollination. So all of the design proximate to the school and then further out in the community was thought of, again, from the resident perspective, so that the kids could get to school safely, and then the school could use the open spaces they needed throughout the school year.
And the thought of kids walking to school, riding their bikes, takes me back to my childhood,
Sure.
And that's what we used to do as well. Yeah. And so that's exciting, and shout out, kudos to the Hillsboro School District taxpayers who, through their support of local bonds, paid for the construction of that school. So, we've talked about parks, trails, but one of the other things is shopping, and so what's in store with the Reeds Crossing Town Center?
So the town center is really exciting. It's coming to fruition. It's well under construction right now. The retail component of the town center is very exciting in that it will be anchored by a grocer, market of choice. So we're really excited about that. But our focus within the town center on the retail side first was to sign up a number of tenants that would have retail offerings from local companies. So White Birch is one of our tenants, Insomnia Coffee, Hops and Drops is a brew pub from the Pacific Northwest. They round out some of the local and regional offerings. And then we have some national offerings like Shake Shack, Jamba Juice, things like that. But we see the retail as really an amenity for the community. It'll kind of revitalize the offering along TV Highway. And then in addition to that, we also have a wellness side, which is the Providence Wellness Center. It's an interesting use. It's new for them in the sense that they're really shifting their business from focusing on the sick to trying to keep people healthy. So really preventative medicine. And so in the Wellness Center, they have traditional things like physician's offices and imaging. There's an urgent care in the Wellness Center. But the other side of it is focused on nutrition, physical therapy, and then active wellness, which provides really a world-class gym, both serves the patients of Providence, but also offers membership to members of the community. So it's a really unique offering within the town center. We're super excited that the town center is coming to fruition. It's really going to add a lot to the community.
Thinking about the shopping, and it's White Birch, Insomnia, they have shops and stores in downtown Hillsboro. It's great to see them relocating here and branching out. And I love, the medical center that's there, because while we have seen a lot of young families and 56% are first home buyers, there's also, senior living that's a component. And so it really provides support for all ages and all stages of life. And again, it makes it complete in a whole different way as well. Dan, you mentioned earlier some of the water treatment and the riparian areas. So we have the connected and we have the complete, with our schools, parks, shopping. But what about the green?
Yeah, thanks for that, Mayor. So that was definitely a very fundamental part of the start for the vision for South Hillsboro and what informed our planning. And that stems from years of input and feedback from our community and from the City Council prioritizing environmental sustainability. And we sought to reflect a lot of that in the land use planning for South Hillsboro. It started with some of the greenway areas and riparian areas that Eric talked about. That was a very natural blend for both of us. We wanted to protect that from a city standpoint. The developers recognized the value and centered that on their projects as well. And so we were able to maximize enhancing those riparian areas, using them for stormwater management, as we've talked about. That was an innovative collaboration with Clean Water Services, a peer agency of ours too, and then really making them educational and recreational. But it went beyond that. We went into the building space. We said, this area is now going to urbanize. It's going to have structures in it. How can we achieve some and further some of the sustainability goals in that way as well? And so it started with putting some design requirements in that talked about the solar orientation of buildings and encouraging homes to be built being solar ready, meaning that they may not have solar panels on the roofs day one. Many of them do, as we can look around us here today and observe, but they could also have them relatively easily added later on without homeowners down the road or renters down the road having to come in and do significant internal retrofits, trying to prepare for and encourage renewable energy generation and use down here in the community. And so those are some pieces that we started out in our policies and our plans and really became part of the engagement with the development partners. And then in some regards, the development partners really took that then to the next level. And I'll let others talk about that.
Sure. So Eric, what is that, next level? Is because again, there's unique aspects of this community, and if we're making it the best, the premier development in the Northwest, certainly sustainability and green is a part of that.
Yeah, we saw that as incredibly important. So when we started our builder program, we required that all builders go get a third-party certification through a company called Earth Advantage. And we set the standard at the Earth Advantage silver level or above. And so each builder, before they sell the house gets inspected and gets certified at that level or above. And many of our builders are actually achieving higher levels than the silver. In fact, we have one builder that's achieving basically it's a net zero ready house, which means that everything is net zero. All you need is the battery pack, and it's fully net zero. But we felt that these improvements, some of the things going into the Earth Advantage program, like as Dan spoke of, pre-wiring for solar panels, pre-wiring for EV charging, additional insulation in the walls so you could handle greater fluctuations in temperature both in the summer and the winter. We felt those efficiencies were just a huge value add to the community, and so we require it of all of our builders.
Very nice. Yeah. So the surprise and the delight, of how things are constructed, but then again, it goes back to once you move in. Kiley, what are some of the other things that delight and surprise the residents?
Yeah, so one of the things I hear about a lot that people really, really love is that the community is very pet friendly. Just in Reed's Crossing, we have over 40 doggy bag stations, and they're located very intentionally along the pathways. Each one of them has a photo on the top of some of our pets of Reed's Crossing that people have submitted, and with the pet's name on there, and it's just very personalized and friendly. And we also have a feature in the monthly newsletter that we call Pets of Reed's Crossing, where people can submit their pets, and we're celebrating, these furry members of people's families in addition to the human members. Nice. But one of the other biggest pieces that people really come here for is the lifestyle aspect. The activities and the programming that we offer is just really unique and diverse. This year alone, we have over 35 events on our event calendar. And we're looking forward to adding even more next year. We have a First Friday Fire Pit Night event that's where residents can come out and gather around the community fire pits and enjoy a fire and some s'mores with their neighbors. We've got Last Friday Flicks, which is our movie in the park series. We have monthly farmers markets, monthly food truck nights. We have an annual scavenger hunt. That's a crowd favorite. Community garage sales. They're just those offerings that we create in addition to the offerings from, the other local providers, Active and the senior living. It's very diverse, and there's always an opportunity for residents to come out and explore the community and meet their neighbors and build connections, whether that's organic or whether it's something that we kind of facilitate. So
this is compelling. It's attractive. And if I am watching this or listening to this and I want to learn more, how do I go about learning more about Reed's Crossing?
So we'd love to have you come out and visit. Number one, we have 6 different home builders that have sales centers that they'll talk to you a bit about their home, but they'll predominantly talk to you about the community and about living here. It's a very low pressure environment, but it's a way to get to learn a bit about Reed's Crossing. Also, our website, reedscrossing.com, provides an abundance of information as well. But more than anything, I encourage people just to come out, walk the trails, walk the open space, get a feel for the community. There's nothing like it in the region. If you come here, you'll love it.
Nice. And so what's next for South Hillsboro? For both this neighborhood or Dan, even, for larger scale, as we look at our, planned and balanced growth?
I'll start. We still have plenty to go. We're only about halfway through. So plenty of more homes. We have about 25 acres of additional open space that needs to be designed and constructed. We have a second school site that down the road will provide a middle school site in our southwest corner. So there's quite a bit left to do at Reed's. And of course, the opening of the town center and the retail side of that will happen next year. So still plenty to come at Reed's Crossing.
Nice.
Beyond Reed's, Mayor, it's a great question. The community and the development down here has been so heavily focused in major infrastructure work as well, getting ready to start the development and delivery of homes, and we've achieved that in the phase 1. There's been some recent exciting news. The Cornelius Pass Bridge extending down into the southern phases of South Hillsboro has also been recently completed. And so we are working with entities similar to ERIC that will start to plan and develop the additional full build out of the 8,000 planned units approximately in the next couple of years. And so that phase 2 is now underway. And we will continue to see homes in this community continue to grow and become increasingly more vibrant, and also producing and providing the critical housing need that our community is seeking. So
very good. And Kiley, with dozens of events, farmers market, movies and concerts, what's next for activities that you hope for or envision down the road?
Yeah, so in 2025, we're looking at adding wellness programming. So things like yoga in the park and kind of organized and coordinated walks and runs for residents in the community, and just kind of really focusing in on wellness as an amenity, and the fact that we have all of these beautiful spaces here that they're prime and ready to be used for this type of activity and healthy lifestyle. And we're really excited about that, and providing residents opportunities to get out and experience the Pacific Northwest.
Thank you. And thanks very much. I mean, this is certainly a crown jewel of Hillsboro, and we have a rich, bejeweled crown. There is so much to be thankful for and to enjoy about our city, but this really is quite remarkable. So thank you for sharing with us this morning. And, I'm glad that, this neighborhood is here for Hillsboro, whether you live here, visit family and friends here, whether you come down to the farmers market or any of the other events, please come down and enjoy the parks. They are here for you as well, no matter where you are living. This will be fun to see how it continues to grow, how it continues to expand. And not often do we get to be a part of something, from the planning, from the ground up, and then watch it grow, watch it mature. And with so many young families, so many first-time home buyers, the future is bright, and this is going to be just a wonderful anchor for Hillsboro for years and years to come. So thank you. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Community Conversations. We look forward to seeing you next time.